Thank you, Ninang Ani. May nahanap pa ako. Maglalagay ako ng
Sometimes all we need is a reset. A new beginning, fresh start, a transformed perspective. Do you remember those pictures that used to make their way around from time to time and looked pretty obvious at first glance, right? But if you really examined it, you would see that the picture of the young woman or whatever it was also an older woman, right? Differing based on how you looked at the lines. And depending on who was looking, they might have a proclivity towards seeing one or the other. But when made aware of the picture's duality, they could always see both. Okay, and there's something to this. This idea is something we should lean on, because I'll tell you what, sometimes our natural proclivity is to see the thing that's not helpful. The first thing we see is an excuse or self-pity. The first thing we see is a list of insecurities or doubts. And we have to remember to take a step back and look again, to examine harder. Because it's amazing how differently things evolve when you make a point to see their value. For example, let's say someone has something you want, something you wished was yours. And maybe your default is, you are less than. Your life is not what it should be. But if you step back and looked again, you would see a few things. One, we're all running different races. You're competing against you, not anyone else. Two, think about everything you do have that someone else would give anything for. And three, you truly do want that thing. How about applauding yourself for having goals, for having desires, for wanting to push the boundaries of life? Now the question is, can you seek to truly understand what that desire is and map out your path to bring it into existence? This is nothing but an opportunity, right? And how could it be anything else? Life's challenges, life's losses, they are wins. They contain within them the DNA to create change, to progress. But one must be able to move beyond the instinct to label it a problem or a net negative. There are and will always be wins where you choose to see wins. As I've heard Tony Robbins mention on many occasions, this isn't closing your eyes and saying, there are no weeds, there are no weeds, there are no weeds, when your garden is full of them. No, it's understanding a simple truth. You'll never leverage value that you don't believe is there. Seeing it is always step one, because it gives you a foundation to stand on as you build. It's picking up the pen and starting that next chapter. It's choosing your worldview. If you lose money, how would one react to, I can't believe it's gone, things will never be the same, my life is over, versus, okay, obviously I learned how to acquire it in the first place, time to do it again, I'm wiser, I'm more aware, and life is abundant. The person that wakes up thinking the former would probably have a hard time getting out of bed. The person telling herself the second story would be motivated to go make things happen. Her worldview has incentivized her. That's why thoughts become things. How we think directly translates into how we act. And our daily actions become our reality. Look, we've all found ourselves in situations where we struggle to see the good in things. where life knocks us down and the opportunity seems to hide itself. But that's exactly what it's doing. Hiding itself. It is there. It's always there. It's there when you've lost something. It's there when you've taken a wrong turn. You get the point. And I'm going to differentiate here between simple and easy. Because the idea of stopping and forcing yourself to find the positive, it's simple. But it's not easy. It's oftentimes not the natural thing to do. But if you can ask that of yourself, you will find the wins that others walk right by. You'll be the change you want in yourself, because the outside world will act as the toolbox to make that happen. Remember, we often can't control what the world gives us, but we can always control what we do about it. And that ability is what I believe separates human beings and their level of growth, success, and achievement. And next time you find yourself down and out, sure, do your thing, handle it how you must. But don't forget that golden rule. It's not what you look at, it's what you see. And when you examine the world around you, point to one, however small, value add that will pick you up, get you back on your feet, and move you forward to that more ideal reality. There's a saying that just because you spent a long time making a mistake doesn't mean you need to continue making it. There's an incredible advantage in life for those who can separate the past and the future, who can recognize sunk costs and walk away from the past, move on to new things. But here's the challenge, right? Like so many things, our instinct is to preserve. It's, yeah, but I've invested so many years. I've spent X amount of dollars, and maybe I don't like where I'm at, but look how long it's taken me to get here. Well, here's the reality. That time is gone. That money is not coming back no matter what you do or what direction you take from here on out. There's no reason to think you have to maintain the same trajectory or hold on to a specific identity or pattern of behavior. Yesterday isn't the focal point here. The goal is simpler. What matters now, and how will you get there now? You've grown, you've evolved, you've changed, and your targets have shifted, so why shouldn't you? The idea of sunk costs is so important because it's essentially realizing that you're not indebted to the resources you've spent or exhausted. There's no need to be a slave to previous decisions that you've made. No, just chalk it up as an integral step in your learning process, an aspect of growth, and move forward to what matters, to what you care about. Now, if that seems obvious, I challenge you to think about the decisions you've made over the last year, and I guarantee you've let factors affect your decision-making that are irrelevant to your goals. Because we feel this camaraderie with yesterday, like there's a debt to be paid, but man, life is too short to run in place. If it's not pushing you forward, drop it. If it's not what you need, forget it. In other words, don't be one of those people that wakes up and makes the same mistake every single day because you spent a long time making it. See, reality only exists in your head, and that's why it's beautiful. You can unlock the cell door and walk out. Don't lose sight of the greatest gift you have. The new beginning that lives in every second, where you can take a turn you've never taken before, remove the mask and play a role you've never played. Let that sense of excitement pull you to new things. Let go of what you can't change and pursue what you can. Forget the time spent. Think of now. Where can you invest now? Your surroundings didn't magically arrive. You chose them. And you can just as easily take that wheel and leave. Simple formula. What is best for you and how do you get there? Not where you feel obligated to be or expected to be or pressured to be. Where do you need to be? Everything else is noise. Everything else is a rope keeping your ship on shore, and you are not confined to that harbor or yesterday's destination. You're built to chase the horizon, follow your curiosity into the sunset. You don't make decisions based on yesterday's story. You sculpt it with tomorrow's possibility. There's something about the way we perceive success that results in one of the greatest tragedies of our time. And that's the belief that successful people, the ones at the top of their game, that talent is what punched their ticket. Destiny brought them to the finish line. That's wrong. It's wrong because it takes the journey, the struggle, the scratching and clawing that it took to get to the top of the mountain and throws it out the window. It completely mitigates what's most important. In the real world, the one we are living in, it doesn't matter who you are never entitled to a result. Victory is a product of the fight. The biggest favor you can ever do for yourself as you progress through life's up and downs, through the good and the bad, when things get rough, is know that you are going through what every successful person, every champion, every innovator has gone through in the history of mankind. Struggle is beautiful. It's a sign that you are in the midst of what separates greatness from an average. It's a necessary step, and it's the most important step you will ever take, because 99% of people can't see past it. Right? The world sees struggle, sees hardship as a time to pack it up, to walk away, to be intimidated. The best, I'm telling you, they look at struggle differently. It's like you can't get fit without blood, sweat, and tears at the gym. You can't make deals without the hustle. You can't make things happen if you don't move forward in the face of adversity. When the word no is staring you in the eyes, it's all part of the process. Winners walk on. You want something bad enough, you know that being uncomfortable is an ingredient. If you want to be the best, your mindset has to reflect the best, right? Let others focus on the tip of the iceberg. You know excellence lies in everything underneath the surface, in what cannot be seen. So take mediocrity and make it excellent. Take what's yours and hold it up for the world to see. Because what hurts now in the present is the very same thing that will transform your life down the road. Let's talk about fear. One of the most interesting aspects of being human. Our fear of touching the stove prevents us from burning our hands. In many ways, it's our greatest protector. But it's also outdated. It can obstruct us from the things that we want most. For thousands and thousands of years, it has kept our species alive. Those who weren't afraid or skeptical of the dark cave or the rustling in the bushes, they probably didn't make it too long back in the day. day, right? They would have been weeded out. But the thing is, life today is very different than it was back then. We don't have to fear for our life going to get food anymore. The tricky part is that in many ways, our cognitive processes are still the same. We are wired to be afraid. And this can be a problem, because if these fears limit our ability to grow or live the life that we want to live, then that fear, that primal instinct, can be a barrier. Because the human body will always take the path of least resistance. And for us, that means avoiding the problem. It's just easier, right? If I'm scared of public speaking, it is exponentially easier for me to avoid the problem and not deal with it. I can eliminate the pain and discomfort by simply staying home. But here's the issue with that mentality. Life is too short and too precious to waste. Think about all the opportunities we'd miss if we ran the other way and hid every time we were afraid, if we never pushed ourselves, if we never broke through the barrier of the unknown and sought out more. It would be a tragedy. We'd live a fraction of the life that we're capable of living. So the big question is how? How do we overcome fear? Well, it turns out the answer is simple. It's just not easy. If you've ever jumped into a freezing cold pool, you'll be able to relate to this. As soon as your body hits the water, you go through extreme discomfort, right? Pins, needles, that quick shock you feel. The only thing on your mind is being out of the pool, being warm. But as time goes by, this changes. Your body acclimates, you adjust. And after 5 minutes, you can get out, you can jump back in, there's no discomfort, you're completely fine. Well, facing our fears follows a very similar pattern. The more we expose ourselves to a certain stimulus, the more comfortable we become. Tim Ferriss references this in the context of going to a crowded place, sprawling out on the floor, lying on your back as people walk by. It's an incredibly difficult and anxiety-inducing thing to do. Right? It goes against every instinct we have, but something happens when you get back up. You've taught your brain that there are no negative repercussions, that it's okay. And this pushes the bar a little higher, makes you a little braver, stretches your boundaries a little further, emphasizing the point that to get what we want out of life, to overcome fear, to be better than we were yesterday, we cannot avoid what makes us uncomfortable. Quite the opposite, we need more exposure to it. To destroy your fears, you need to muster up the courage to stare them in the face. And that's tough, right? Our mind tricks us into thinking about worst case scenario. But if you can change your mentality to see not the downside, but the upside, life changes along with it. Now the scariest outcome isn't failure or having to backtrack or being wrong. The scariest outcome is doing nothing. What we eventually learn is that dark, mysterious unknown isn't half as scary as standing still and watching life go by. It's no secret that the best things in life come with the biggest price. The victories, the transformation, the things that ultimately define your journey, they're made of something different. And in fact, if you look at the etymology of the word extraordinary, it means outside the normal course of events. It means it requires of you something bigger. Robert Frost has a beautiful quote that the best way out is always through. The only way to redefine reality is to stop running in place and look the now square in the eye. When I think about my story, my growth, the greatest adversary I've faced hasn't been instances of misfortune or setbacks. Sure, they occur, but we find ways around those. My greatest adversary has been to concede to what I believed was normal. To hope or expect that somehow things would change on their own, that the world would ultimately rearrange itself for me. But this way of thinking needs to be changed, because where there is no accountability, the power is in the situation. But when you find the courage to face every problem in your life head on, you suddenly find yourself where you need to be, in control. Life is about breaking things down and rebuilding. It's remembering the meaning of the word extraordinary, and therefore stepping into the dark, the unknown, the organized chaos, not going around the discomfort, but storming the castle, because it's here the greatness lives. It's by paying a price in strength and courage that reality will ultimately bend to your will. While life might tempt us, while pride might beg us, the best way out is always through. There's a saying that some people feel the rain, others just get wet. I've always found this interesting, this idea, how the same subject, same situation, or occurrence can be interpreted so differently, right? It can plant the seeds for such different outcomes. Like Kashimi and Koga mentioned in their book, The Courage to Be Disliked. Well water is 60 degrees, and it's always 60 degrees in the summer and the winter, but depending on what time of year, right, the makeup of the outside world, that 60 degrees feels different. The water didn't change, its circumstances did, and our thoughts are no different. It's not the world that writes the story, we do. And every second, moment, day is merely an interpretation. Does time tick by, or is it driven into a state of flow? Is it transformed into something more? Was losing an indicator that, hey, maybe you're not good enough? Or is it your motivation to be better than you've ever been? Is your day an allegiance to the present, or an invitation to chase down tomorrow? See, the world doesn't get to tell the tale. The world is paper, it's ink, it's ideas. The world is everything you need to decide how your story's going to go. How does he see the world? How does she define reality? That's the question. You don't need to change the world, you need to change the way you see it. And you don't need to change who you are. You need to change the imaginary shackles you placed around your ankles that are limiting the heights you could reach. In fact, the world, as far as I'm concerned, is an accumulation of thoughts, ideas. It's 8 billion individualized movie screens attempting to interact, to coexist together. And when you look at it like that, it's not that your mindset plays a role or it's kind of important. No, it's that it narrates the play. It's the glue that ties everything together. What you see is what you get. And this isn't a one and done thing, it's an everyday thing. Because there's always going to be occurrences in our lives that challenge us, that threaten our understanding of who we are and what we're capable of. There will always be the temptation to make the opportunity into the problem and the hero into the villain. But why forfeit that control? I remember hearing that if you find time to be grateful, both in the morning and at night, it changes your life. Not because the world transforms, but because it reinforces the perspective you need. We are lucky to be here. We're lucky to have challenges that push us forward. Lucky to have ups and downs that bring us closer to the people in our lives. We're lucky that chaos and discomfort open a door for transformation on the other side. And look, I get life isn't perfect, and not everything can be great all the time. But I do believe that if we can bring ourselves to stop, to breathe, to even focus briefly, we can find value in any situation. What's in front of you, it exists, right? It's the well water. You can't go back in time or remake the obstacle decide how to make that work for you. And that's a superpower. And I use that. I use it when my short-term ideas or videos or projects underperform. I use it when people let me down. I use it when in the moment I'm either under or overwhelmed to question, where is the win? In this spot, this situation where most would hang their heads and let the outside world rewrite the story, how can I find a way to hold mine high and maintain my own accountability? Extreme differences in life outcomes are so often prompted by such subtle realizations, subtle decisions. Their reason to stop could be your reason to not only carry on, but thrive. And the best news is you don't need approval or authorization. You don't need the stars to align or doors to open up. You just need to give yourself permission to see the sun amidst the clouds, the hope amidst the doubt. You have to remind yourself that there is always something to cling to, always a second chance. There is always a win. All you have to do is choose to see it.
Make every exam your moment with Chegg. Keep a steady partner in your pocket with support customized to your courses, including expert-made practice tests, flashcards, step-by-step solutions, and video breakdowns. Subscribe to Chegg and we'll help guide you.
I'll never forget listening to Jim Rohn. I was taking a walk in the middle of the day. I needed to get out, decompress, rethink, realign. This message came through my headphones. It said, we must all suffer from one of two pains. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons. I needed that.
Yamanin, tabeldot nga gagatulan na po. Manong Jomar. Pinigdap. Di nag-ikot-ikot. Kaya pala. Nalpas ba ti pray yun? Nag-love shoutout Miss Sarah Hadan replay sa nakapinwa. Sige, thank you po. Wait lang iyan. Wala, hindi na.
your lives.
Okay, tama naman.
Yet in a way,
Di ba bakit ibalay mo manong?
you have to somehow make that tangible. You have to know that sacrifices of today deliver you from the anguish of I wish, or if only, or maybe I could have. I've heard it said that humans' ability to delay gratification is what makes us so unique. Incredible even. That doesn't mean it comes easy. So as I walked, I became reacquainted with the trust that I had in myself, in the future, and the steps I was taking. It wasn't that I'd reached some grand finale, but that I gave myself permission to stop constantly expecting one. Worrying when things didn't go as planned. Feeling disgusted with myself when I fell short. This is, after all, part of a process. And if one stays the course, builds a foundation, discipline to guide them towards what they believe in, things will evolve. We feel uncertain because new things don't have a precedent, at least not a personal one. And that feeling of, I wish I knew or had some predictability, it's real, it's common. But if minimizing regret is what means the most, then it also means that we must have the discipline to walk steadfast into the unpredictability of tomorrow. A long-term, sustained discipline. In one of my favorite interviews, Bronnie Ware, who wrote the top 5 regrets of dying, was talking about surrender and how she mentioned in her book, letting go. And I asked her, can you explain that? What's the angle? Because the way I look at life, there's always something you can do. You can always improve your situation somehow. And she basically said, it's not about what you can control, what you can do. It's about putting yourself in position to live the life you want to live, and then letting go of that which you cannot control. It's about not worrying over external forces as you walk your path, because all you can do in life is walk your path. And that became the marker, or the question, am I walking my path? Right, and I look at it like this. First, a vision gives you direction, purpose, keeps you excited, injects meaning into life. Second, discipline keeps you moving, becomes the tiny steps that transport you through your pursuit of meaning. And third, trust in the process. That you are here to give everything you have to give, and then the rest, as Bronnie says, must be surrendered. But the reason I bring this up is because all of it fits together like a puzzle, like 3 pillars of a Parthenon. Now, when people reach out to me all the time, they're upset that they're not as disciplined as they'd like to be. And they're listening to the speeches, they're watching the videos, they're absorbing the content, trying to improve. But nothing seems to get the engine going. And I'm wondering, what is your North Star? What are you aiming for? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's impossible to be disciplined if you don't have a reason. When Jim Rohn states that the pain is in ounces now, well, there's an implicit compared to what being asked. right? Compared to that top of the mountain that you'd presumably miss out on. So if the mountaintop's not defined, you're on a fool's errand. That's why I had so much trouble with my old career, for example. It's hard to be disciplined. There's no buy-in on the purpose. Using my previous metaphor, it's little steps, sure, but towards what? If you don't know, it's only practical then to look around and ask yourself, why am I taking them? Why not go drink with my friends? Why not stream this series on Netflix until 4 a.m.? Why not skip the workout? You can listen to people on YouTube scream at you to do more and be more and try harder all day, but without that piece, it will not get you very far. A vision, the discipline to pursue it, and a trust in the process. And you could say the same with someone who might have a clear vision, a dream, a perfect idea of what they want, but never take action, right? The discipline never materializes. Makes the endeavor just as meaningless. Things don't change until you take that big picture, that vision, and you break it down into little things you can do every day. That's it. And isn't that amazing? The greatest, most influential people, from the friends and family that inspire us, to the greatest athletes and entertainers, to our greatest thinkers, creators, world leaders, all they do is a handful of things consistently every day in the direction of something that is meaningful to them. A process that has been talked about since the beginning of time. The compound effect, as Darren Hardy calls it. That breakthrough was huge for me. The realization that I don't need to leap any mountain. I just need to ascend one tiny rock at a time. And that is not a superhuman ability. That is a single decision. So here the question is, can you be more disciplined? Of course you can. The question is, which few things are most meaningful to you? Which will you be focusing on every day so that they expand and then, lastly, there is trust. Sometimes the most difficult. Seeing the unseen. Maintaining confidence in that which is unknown. An incredibly challenging expectation in an instantaneous world, a world where things are immediate. Feedback is immediate. Messages are sent across the planet instantaneously. Goods and services arrive within hours. We have forgotten patience because it is disintegrating before our very eyes. We are a society of now. But the best things in life, they take time. They require that we hold up our end of the bargain and that we trust life will fall into place. Belief in a process that will come to mean more than anything that arrives in 30 seconds ever could. A vision, the discipline to pursue it, and a trust in the process. So perhaps you're overdue for your midday walk, your little excursion into the soul, to ask yourself, what is it you are moving towards? Why are you doing what you're doing? Does it mean something? And if not, Perhaps some adjustment is in order. Perhaps you've lost sight of that North Star that lights up our lives and illuminates the way. Take solace in the fact that life is not as serious as we make it out to be. We don't live in a world of right and wrong, good and bad, yes and no, but a continuum. An opportunity to seek out and find the beautiful ups and the meaningful downs, to set our sights on the horizons that matter. See, when the little things feel too complex or burdensome, it's because the big things are misaligned. And that is a powerful idea to grasp. It's never that life is too difficult. It's that we closed our eyes. So don't be fooled by those selling you reality as some problem, some obligation that must be dealt with. No, today is the greatest gift of your lifetime. And the same will be true every day moving forward. And to echo Jim Rohn, absolutely it is a gift comprised of sacrifice, discomfort along the way. But that's a small price to pay for an entry to the show. For the ability to embrace the mystery and embark upon the adventure when you're pointed to the right North Star. Well, the road, it feels less treacherous on your feet. The hills less strenuous on your legs. What we often deem to be a lack of preparedness, ability, strength, well, might just be a lack of alignment. So adjust. Because this world, flexible and limitless, invites you to do just that. It invites you to explore until you've uncovered your vision. To pursue it like nothing else matters. To sidestep the obstacles, invert the setbacks, and lastly, to find hope when there appears to be none. To set your sails, walk your path, run your race, and surrender to that which is beyond your control. And you'll find that with a vision, with discipline, with trust in the process, there is no situation or circumstance outside the scope of what's possible for you. That's literally when others not doing anything spectacular, not a big order, not leaping a mile or jumping over a mountain, but simply carrying on. Thomas Edison has a famous quote that's really stuck with me over the years. He says, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." Right? How close they were to the finish line when they turned their back and said it wasn't worth it. It's really an interesting thing to grasp. Right? Success is seeing what others can't. It's believing when others don't. It's taking the abstract, those visions, those pictures in your head, the make-believe, and finding the courage to make them, bring them to life. It's this constantly evolving process, and it grows a little bit every single day. sometimes we feel that progress. We feel the momentum. We do something big and it's exciting. Sometimes the progress feels small. And then there are times when we get knocked down and we don't see it at all. We feel like because we weren't validated that we lost, that we failed, that it wasn't enough. We forget that's part of the process, that progress is a journey. And it goes when you go, and it stops when you stop. Just like that famous Dalai Lama quote, right? The only way to fail is to quit. Period. No one ever stops because they can. They stop because they decide to. They stop because impossible. They forget it's only made of little rocks. They stop because they get so disheartened by the distance of the finish line that they forget it only takes a collection of little steps to get there. You don't have to leap the entire distance. No, I've been there. Right? This is me speaking from experience. It took me years to figure it out. And even now, life is rapidly evolving. I've poured my heart into things that, let's be honest, no one cared about. I've invested in opportunities that fell apart right in front of me. Each time it felt like the end of the world. I've been lost. I've been unsure. Gotten up after things didn't go as planned, and it felt like a loser. I had to look myself in the mirror and pick myself back up off the floor. But there's one thing that I kept doing that I never thought twice about. And that's continuing on. Whether life lifted me up or it beat me down, my plan for tomorrow was always the same. Get up and try again. Keep going. And as I sat down this morning with my pen and a piece of paper, I thought, what's the one thing I would want to be told if I started out again? What's the one thing that people need to hear most? And it's to simply keep going. Keep taking steps. Because one day the world will start to make sense. And you'll look around and you will be thankful for one thing. That when most would have stopped, you didn't. When the world said no, you said yes. There is nothing so powerful as a soul that refuses to back down. Persistence is not an important thing or an essential thing. It's everything. So live as to see, not what can be lost, but what will be gained. Find that light in darkness, even if it's a flicker, even if it's a spark. See, every loss makes you a little tougher, and every instant of sadness uncovers something beautiful. Every moment of fear teaches you to be a little braver. Every broken heart opens the door to a new connection. Instead of doubting yourself, feeling inadequate in life's darkest moments, know that you need what you are going through. You are uncovering the little victories hidden in plain view. So when the world feels like too much, and your patience is thin, is stronger than that voice in your head, begging you to think small. Stand.
Yes.
Damn, hulugan ng umaga. Kahit para bang naiisip mo na agad ang mga obligasyon na dapat mo nagkapanan. Kaya kinakalimutan mo na paano sumaya. Para kaibigan, mag-usap na tayo. Labas mo yung alak at saka yung baso. Pati pulutan sa plato o jello. Kasama yung kulay na nasa pulo. Ulit mo ba? Mas marami pa. Ang masirap sa iyo kung nahihirapan ka. Maraming nagkawalang kaintindihan. Walang pamilya o pero matalan. Kaya sino tayo para magreklamo kung may masikip pa sa atin na problema. Dahil ito sa mundo ng mga tao, di masama mangarap basta napupunta. Tayo, tapos hindi pumunta sa malayo sa walang may pake. Malalagpasan mo rin ang lahat ng problema. Basta kalma ka lang tumake ka, tapos hindi pa. Tayo, tapos hindi pumunta sa malayo sa walang may pake. Malalagpasan mo rin ang lahat ng problema. Basta kalma ka lang tumake ka, tapos hindi pa. Masarap na buhay na tahimik at payapa, lalo na kapag malaya ang iyong kaisipan. Wala nang iniisip ng problema para bata palagi ng masaya. Ano man ang problema na dumaan, ang ibig ko sabihin ay walang permanente. Ang kada lilipas bago ay pwede. Dahil ang bawat mga pangyayari o mangyayari walang makakasabi. Iniisip ko lang ang buhay, sige ba ikutin na parang tagay. Teka na mukhang lasing na nga ako, kasi bigla na lang ako nagpapayo. Kapag sa alak naging tamado, mamaya-maya ako na Inglesero. O paano, tapos na ang usapan, kaya ituloy na tagay. Para tagay tayo, tapos hindi pumunta sa malayo sa walang may papi. Lalagpasan mo rin ang lahat ng problema. Basta kalma ka lang, tumake ka, tapos hindi pa. Taratagay tayo, tapos hindi pumunta sa malayo sa walang may papi. Malalagpasan mo rin ang lahat ng problema. Basta kalma ka lang, tumake ka, tapos hindi pa. Taratagay tayo, tapos hindi pumunta sa malayo sa walang may pake. Malalagpasan mo rin ang lahat ng problema. Basta kalma ka lang, tumake ka, tapos hindi pa. Taratagay tayo, tapos hindi pumunta sa malayo sa walang Babalik sa lahat. Huwag mo na balikan, patuloy ka lang kapag na. Oras na hindi na makabalikan. Ako, hindi na may babalik ang dati-dati. Tamis ng iyong halikay di na pagkakusay sa isa ay di na mabubuhay. Paalam sa ating pag-ibig na pinsa'y pinag-isa. Ayaw ay pinagtak mo, ngunit hindi tinadhana. Makakarong itong mundo. Kalimutan kahit nahihirapan para sa sariling kapakanan. Kalimutan kahit nahihirapan oras na hindi na mapapalitan. Alam ko, hindi na nahanap. Subalit tayo
sa sariling kapakanan. Nalimutan nahihirapan. Pag-ibig na ating sinayang nagtagpo. Dinadana hanggang dito na lang tayo. nating iniwasan ganitong mga tanungan. At kahit di sigurado, tinamay natin ang ating unayan. Ngayon'y naubos na ang kwentuhan, nagsimula ng magsisihan. Lahat ay parang lumabo, di alam kung saan tutungo. Sabi ko yung mapa, natanong na pala.
Every exam your moment. With check.
انت رقم واحد في قلوبنا. انت some of you are feeling like giving up right now. Don't. Just don't do it. We need you here. Emotions are simply emotions. Things that can't last. No matter what you're feeling, that emotion will not stay. So never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. Don't believe everything you think. See, we naturally feel that if we think something, it's got to be true because it comes from within us. But just because you think something doesn't make it true. It's not the end until you give it up. And just the fact that you're here should persuade you that still put. Don't you give up on your dream. It may take you twice as long. You may have to take courses and classes. You might not read as fast. You might not move as quick. You might not have as much. But don't you quit. It takes courage to be exceptional. It takes courage to be wise. It takes courage to be rich. It takes courage to be educated. It takes courage to be knowledgeable. Because the moment you do it, you don't talk like you know, you don't look out where you came from. Look at you, it takes courage. And I'm just wondering, in this weak, watered down, mediocre society that we live in today, in this reality TV world we live in today, I'm wondering if there's anybody left that's got the courage to say, after all I do, and all my ancestors do, and all my parents do, and they put through all of that to go to the end of the door. I have the courage to go after my dreams. You have the courage. You don't even know how creative you are until you run out of options. You don't know how innovative you are until you feel like your back is up against the wall. I am excited about your future. This is about to be your development. Everybody can stand up and do good when everything is all good. Everybody can smile when it's sunshine. Everybody can do right when everything is going right. Everybody can do that. And everybody can face opposition, adversity, and challenges and say, I've been waiting on you to come. I'm going to embrace you, and I'm going to figure out a way to use you because you will never make me a person that people don't recognize before the adversity. That's made up in my mind before the battle even happened. Because I know anyway. I know anyway. I would rather aim for the stars and not aim at all. I would rather go after it and not get it than not go after it at all. I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. I don't want to live with the idea of stuff that you have to get through to get to the other side. The will. You are strong enough to climb any mountain. You are strong enough to get through any test. You have a will that was given to you at birth. I need you to exercise it. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.
Ang bilis yun ba't 4 minutes lang yun?
Stop. Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior? Before you answer that,
Dream.
Tomorrow is the most dangerous word in your vocabulary. Because while it's a symbol for hope, it can just as easily be the reason that your dreams remain little images in your head. Tomorrow diminishes the significance of the air that you're breathing right now. It tells you that someday you can begin your journey, and that you can just wait and make yourself comfortable until then. Tomorrow masks itself as an escape for those held down by fear, those resistant to change. It encouraged you to be content where you are, stating that you have your whole life to get where you want to be. And for some, tomorrow lasts forever. It evolves into regret, into immobility, into an excuse to never really do what you were meant to do. Tomorrow can be worse than failing, because often it implies that there was never a beginning. There was just a vision, just an idea being put off for a better time that never came. There will never be a moment in your life more precious than the one you're living in. Your heart beating in your chest, the air in your lungs, the blood in your veins. They're giving you an opportunity to make a change, to become who you want to become, to live, to inspire, to achieve. Because who really knows how many tomorrows you'll get? And the last thing you want is to look back on your life thousands of days from now and wish you had the courage to do what you wanted to do. To wish that you understood how fast tomorrows come and go. And that all you will ever have is the present moment. journey starts with a step. That courageous act of moving forward, not knowing what tomorrow will bring, only knowing that you'll be further along then than you are now. That you'll be stronger, wiser, smarter, because you didn't wait for tomorrow, you didn't wait for anything. And that is the difference between I am and I wish I was. It is the difference between dreaming and truly living. Life gives you one-dimensional in terms of the lives they lead. And that's a part of life I've always been very intrigued by, how we intentionally restrict and limit our reality. Why do cookie-cutter expectations of how things should be, precedence, why is that more important than a life of meaning? To put that into context, I'm talking about people who hate their jobs but rationalize by saying they're building a resume, or people scared to move out of relationships they aren't happy with. People I know right now in law school don't even want to be lawyers. These folks are sleepwalking. They've settled. And my question is maintaining individuality that scary? That you live in every day unfulfilled so that you can proudly proclaim that you fit into the bland, average norms that you've decided are required of you? Look, I completely understand the safety of pursuing a path that will socially validate your existence in the short term. You jumped on the first train you saw. It's the train everyone's jumping on. You're comfortable with the destination. Right? This provides the illusion that you must be on the right track. And it would be if it weren't for that burning question that always reveals itself in times of constraint and unhappiness. What if? What if you did things differently? So now you're on this train with everyone else, all going somewhere you don't really want to go, together, bragging about it, and maybe you just wonder, right, what would have happened if you waited? What if you took another train? What if you weren't so worried about fitting into these black and white expectations that you did what you wanted? Right? It seems ridiculous to do what you want. And the truth is, it takes balls, it takes courage to let these trains go by one and wait for yours. Your train is on its way. There's no proof that it is, there's no message, everything work out, there's no safety guarantee. That's why so many people jump on that first train right to Mediocreville. To be different, to be great, start by looking at people who have done great things. They all have the same message. Believe in yourself. Trust your ability. It's not hidden. It's not a message that's hard to find. You just have to want to find it. Steve Jobs talks about believing that the dots are going to connect in your future, driving towards something without proof. Muhammad Ali says he never feared his opponents because he had faith in his ability over everyone else's. Richard Branson said that fulfilling lives are only for those brave enough to find them. Their messages are exactly the same. Trust your ability. I don't think any of these guys would be caught dead on the first train. Look, things generally work out. If you have the mindset, if you have the work ethic, you're already ahead of 90% of the world. Bet on yourself. If you follow the crowd, you'll get lost in the crowd. Just because validation isn't right in front of you, it doesn't mean it isn't there. It doesn't mean it's not coming. Believe that. Know that it is. Be okay with taking the last train home. That is the train you want. That is the experience worth waiting for. So I dealt with something today that kind of knocked me off my feet a little bit. One of those unfortunate things that pops up really sets you back. Especially when you're working and really driving towards something. And obviously this isn't specific to me. You know, everyone has to deal with things that they don't want to. No one has to go sailing all the time. But I was sitting in my living room, pissed off, angry at the world, thinking about all the ways that this unfortunate situation is going to be detrimental to what I'm trying to do. Really feeling defeated. But the more I thought about it, the more it became evident that I was wasting my time. Because realistically, whatever happened, it happened. I can't change that. But what I do have control over is the way I internalize the situation. My perspective. Do I want to see this circumstance as good or bad? That old glass half full, half empty concept. So I began thinking about how I can take this unfortunate situation and rather than suffer because of it, how I can benefit from it, make it an advantage. When you really think about what a setback is, it's kind of a unique thing because it's an opportunity to take a step backwards and reapproach the challenge that you're facing. But this time, to come back better than before. To show the universe why it's going to take more than that. It's time to dig deeper now. Time to push yourself to the next level. The world wants to keep throwing problems your way? Good. You'll just keep finding ways to get better. In life, so many of us are lucky to have the freedom to pursue our passion. And we do that tirelessly. But a big part of that is the ability to be agile, to adapt, to find ways to win when you hit a roadblock. A lot of the times that ends up being the difference maker. One of the reasons I love doing this work is because I talk to so many amazing people. I hear so many great stories about these brave individuals battling illnesses, tough times, but still making a point to run, to work out, to excel in their daily lives at work with their family. And again, it just puts everything into perspective. Why shouldn't I be able to transform my situation? Which, by the way, pales in comparison to what some of these people are doing. This is life. Here are your puzzle pieces that are assigned to you. Now figure it out. Nothing can be solved or made better. So I hope anyone listening to this, going through that rough stretch, I hope you can take that step back and really re-examine what it is that's in front of you. Don't be torn down by it. Grow from it. Because when the dust settles, you'll come out way stronger than you were before. And I assure you that the dust will settle. It always does. fear is an integral part of life. It's a natural reaction to be afraid of something that we believe to be dangerous. In specific situations, it keeps us from harm, right? We don't put our hand near a flame for fear of being burned, and that's a good thing. That's its biological intent. It's part of the reason our species was able to evolve and flourish. But just as it helps us, it can be our biggest obstacle. It becomes easy to see everything as that flame that will burn our hand. We fence ourselves in, we create a comfort zone because a comfort zone is safe. And because of this, we miss out on some of life's greatest opportunities. Most things worth having live outside of our comfort zone, on the other side of fear. Everyone deals with being afraid. It's who we are. The difference lies in how we handle it. Quoting Peter McWilliams, he says there are two types of people. People who experience fear while trying to grow themselves and expand their comfort zone, and people who feel fear just thinking about expanding their comfort zone, never acting because they're scared of the unknown. It's the exact same fear that is felt by both types of people, those who act and those who hide. The difference is that one grows and one doesn't. One creates a life of adventure, of passion, the other a life of regret. It's funny because you start to hear these things so much that they come across as cliche, right? Fear is the great barrier. How many times have we heard that? But when was the last time you woke up and did something about it? Made an effort to do exactly what you're afraid of? Put yourself on the front line. Put yourself out there. These are the experiences that shape our character, where we prove to ourselves that, hey, maybe it's not so bad. Realistically, the worst that could happen is that you don't meet expectation. It's that you fall on your face. In which case you pick up your pride, you look yourself in the mirror, and you get ready for round two. Because round two means you come back more prepared, knowing what to expect. That's why it's been said that even if you fall on your face, at least you're moving forward. Eventually you'll adapt. This new challenge will become part of you. It becomes okay. It becomes comfortable. And look, just like that, you've expanded your comfort zone. Now you can move on to the next chapter. So remember, the people you admire, the people who have done great things, lit the path for us. It's not that they weren't afraid. It's that they used their fear as a tool for growth, not a crutch. It's part of the reason we have such awe and fascination with the great minds of history. Imagine Neil Armstrong looking back one last time before stepping into the spacecraft that would take human beings to the moon for the first time. Jackie Robinson suiting up for his first game with the Dodgers. The American colonists signing the Declaration of Independence. We don't think about it often, but just imagine if these people gave into the fear they must have felt overcoming these obstacles. What would we have? How different would life be? So my ask of you is that you find a way. You find a way to get to the other side of fear, because that's where dreams become reality. It's where your world can change if you just allow it to. So, typical Tuesday morning, I was up spending some time reading, checking out some videos online, and I came across one that really hit home for me. to the point where I wanted to make it the central theme for this week's video. And basically, it was a short monologue by Robin Sharma. For those who don't know him, he's a sharp guy. He's got a lot of content on the internet. And what he said specifically that caught my attention was that to have the results that only 5% get, you need to have the guts to do what only 5% are willing to do. And this really got the wheels turning in my head, because there are only so many ways you can articulate personal courage. Only so many ways you can talk about being fearless. But in my eyes, this puts it in the perfect context, because it shines a direct light on the fact that success and overcoming social fears are directly linked. Sure, as you walk through this thought process, the concept will resonate with you. Right? 95% of people live for Friday. Immediate pleasures like TV, fast food, drinking, these are things that are commonplace in society, in the world we live in. And I'm not, standing here pointing a finger saying it's inappropriate. My message goes deeper than that. What I'm saying is that if you want to be at the top in whatever it is that you do, right, or as Robin alluded to, the 5%, you have to sacrifice some of these pleasures that the greater population indulges in. And this is where the guts comes in. Because anytime you deviate from a norm, anytime you put yourself above a social standard, people do not like it. It becomes personal, which results in criticism, the cynical outlook, or the haters, as we commonly refer to it today. And that's not easy. It's never easy walking one way when the larger group is walking another. That's not rocket science. But it's also why so few people do it. Let's face it, if you're going to do something of significance, you need to expect negativity. People trying to tear down what you're building up. Because like it or not, that's just how the world reacts. And the way I see it is that you can handle it a few ways. Right? You can live your life in a way that conforms, you can shy away from that criticism, or just take it head on. Learn to accept it, thrive on it. Because you'll never be able to please everybody. So why not have the courage to do what you believe in? Have the guts to be called abnormal. Take it as a compliment. I've mentioned before that the way you perceive something makes or breaks you. Think about how powerful that statement is in this context. You can look at the negativity, the haters, as a reason to change your approach, throw the towel. Or you can see it as a sign of progress, an anticipated part of your journey. You can use it as a building block or a stepping stone for further success. Those are two polar opposite outcomes, by the way, all derived from how you choose to internalize the world around you. When you get through it all, you'll be happy you hung in. I can promise you that. That you have the guts to look past the norms and your surroundings. That you have the guts to be something different. Decisions. Isn't that what it ultimately comes down to? Is it a dead end or a new beginning? An obligation or an opportunity? Because today can be whatever you want it to be, whatever you decide it is. And when you lay your head on the pillow at night, that's what makes all the difference. Imagine for a second being on a beach, dragging your foot and creating an indented pathway in the sand. And when you finish, taking a bucket of water and pouring it into that very same channel you just sculpted. The water is going to follow the path that you laid out. It will flow within the confines of the channel that you just made. And the way I see it, life is just like that water. It flows within the boundaries placed before it. And how you decide to see the world creates that channel that contains the water. It's the driving force behind everything in your life, guiding every single thing that comes through. Have you ever thought about how small the details are that sway our perception of reality? How different people interpret the exact same event in different ways? Why do some people rise when criticized and others crumble? Why do some see fear in hardship when others see opportunity? Why do some aspire to build and others to tear down? See, everyone has the same clay. People just decide to sculpt, to mold it differently. Your external world is a reflection of the internal decisions you make, decisions that dictate everything. Decisions that take what the world throws your way and transforms them according to your viewpoint. Life runs right through your moat every day, that channel in the sand that you created, that you direct. You control how events unfold because you decide how they will be handled and harnessed. You choose the map that will take you to your final destination. So decide what you want and let it transform your perspective. Own it, become it, accept nothing less. Envision a boat making its way through the water, moving further and further from sight. Just a tiny object amidst an enormous ocean. Its journey comprised of endless possibilities, unlimited potential. Its destination could be anywhere in the world. And while observing this boat as it glides over the water, nothing is more apparent than the freedom it contains. The beauty in knowing that it can follow its soul into the sunset if it so desires. And as you look on to this phenomenon, you'll notice that it sheds no light on where the boat has been, nor on what has brought it to this point. You won't see the wrong turns taken, the mistakes made, nor the obstacles that were overcome to get here. What you will see is a seemingly fresh start, where every second of every minute is a new opportunity for the boat to go where it wants to go, to be what it wants to be. Its wake has no impact on its course. This is one of the most beautiful things about being alive. Every single day provides a blank page in your story for you to fill out as you see fit. Old habits, friends, mistakes, expectations, they exist in whatever capacity you allow them to. But they are not you. They are not indicative of your potential. You are the captain of your ship. Set sail. Running around this morning, trying to get a head start on some things. Decided to stop in, grab a quick coffee. So I'm standing in line, door opens, two gentlemen walk in, stand in line right behind me. They start chatting back and forth, and basically one of them starts talking about how he's had a rough morning. dealt with some unfortunate things, and was basically capping today off as a bad day. Which on the surface is pretty ordinary. You know, we all have rough days, they're real, and this happened to be one of them. But it also happened that as he said this, I was looking at the clock, and it wasn't even 7 a.m. Now, I don't know this guy's situation. It's absolutely none of my business, and I have no intention of delving into it. But internalizing all this sort of got the gears turning in the back of my head. You know, I'm thinking about how much the day is left. The sun is still coming up as this conversation is happening. So I grabbed my coffee and walked outside, started to think about all the reasons that today is good. Which is sort of an awkward activity at first, right? It's not something we consistently walk around talking to ourselves about. But as I gave it some thought, I immediately saw the benefit. Today is good because, for starters, what I'm left with at the end of the day is directly correlated to the decisions that I make throughout the day. Think about how powerful that is in itself, right? You know that feeling when you have a blank page to write or paint? Or there's a movie that you've been dying to see, the opening credits first come out, the first note is played at a concert. I'm living that, right? I am personified opportunity just walking down Beacon Street. If I go left, everything that happens will be because I went left. Think about the power that's contained in that. I mean, it opens the door for unlimited opportunities. Today is good because it's right now. I may have made some rough decisions last week, last month, last year, but guess what? They don't exist where I'm going. In fact, they don't exist at all. Maybe yesterday, but not today. Right? They've played their part, they provided their wisdom, now they can disappear. Today is good because statistically, I should be here. Because so many people were robbed of today. Because I get the opportunity to see the sun come up. And because the time will come when that will no longer be the case. Today is good because I have friends and family to share with this ridiculous ride. Chock full of ups and downs and all that stuff in between. Right? I'm certainly not capable of sitting here and dissecting the meaning of life, but I do know that whatever it happens to be, it's substantially better when shared, when enjoyed, and today that's what I'm going to do. Today is good. I'd like to think there's a lot in store down the road. You know, some of it will push me forward, some of it will cause me to stop, make adjustments, but I'll be damned if it will take the joy out of my day. Not today. I have something very different in store, and I plan to see it through. I have the ability, the resources, the determination. I can't think of anything else I'd need. So coffee in hand, here I go. When I was a little bit younger, my grandfather would make a point to pull me aside every so often and say, Eddie, you are stronger than you think you are. You know, at the time, it didn't really resonate with me, right? I kind of smiled, acted appreciative, and moved on. But then that thing called life happens, you know, when you start to see the ups and downs, you experience the hardships, and no one's there to tell you how to act or how to handle it. But your response is what makes all the difference. And I look back now to that message and can't help but wonder if I'd be where I'm at today without it, because it's not just a reminder. It's not something that goes on a sticky note and hangs on a wall. It's so much more. It's the reason that I can navigate through change, through loss, the reason I don't fear failure. See, nothing ever happened that I couldn't get through. And you don't realize that unless you look back. If you decide to rise to the occasion, you will. You're 100% capable of doing more than you ever imagined. Reality is a narrative, and you are always stronger than you think you are. Life is not some puzzle to be solved. It's never about hiding or worrying or eliminating all bad fortune. It's about knowing that you can and will get through everything. That nothing can push you down and keep you there. Maybe the worst is yet to come. Maybe it's not. But the best of you, that is undiscovered. And through the very hardship that you once feared, you'll be able to paint a portrait of the new you, brushstroke by brushstroke. And see, back then, I didn't get that. I didn't know that growing up meant enduring difficulty. I didn't know what I was truly capable of. But years have passed, and now I know that I am stronger than I thought I was. And while life is not certain, my confidence stands alone. It's the reason that I run towards my dreams, never away from them, and neither should you. Don't forget that, because during even the worst of days, the darkest of nights, you are always stronger than you think you are. There's a world you know, and there's a world that you don't. And the world you know lays out everything for you perfect. You know where you need to be, what's expected of you, how to think, how to act. The world you know tells you what's possible. It tells you when you've done enough. Because of this world, you can be sure that you'll get through the day. But I'm not interested in waking up every morning with the goal of just knowing that I'll get through the day. Victory lies outside of your daily routine. It exists in the beliefs that aren't commonly held, in actions that are rarely taken. It lives in the world that you don't know. In this world you don't know, it requires risk. It requires you to turn your back on the word normal and to move towards something new. It means you burn your own trail rather than follow the footsteps of others. And yes, embarking in a journey like this, it does create extra pressure. It does put weight on your shoulders. But I can promise you this, once you have made the trip, you will see the best things that life has to offer. You'll push yourself to places you didn't know existed. You'll step, accomplish, keep moving, as far away from average as possible, straight toward the top, where you innovate, you turn potential into excellence, you translate emotion into art, you'll exceed expectations again and again and again. Seek out what you don't know. Once you find the strength to stare the unknown in the face, guess what? It's not unknown anymore. Now it's part of you. The very part that's going to push you to the next event, and the next, and the next, and the next, and breathe life into you, allow you to live to the fullest. This is how you create excellence. It's how you create a life worth living. So forget the world you know. It means nothing. It's a mirage. It's an illusion. Greatness awaits in the shadows where people are unwilling to go. It lives in the world that you don't know.
Make every exam your moment with Chegg. Keep a study partner in your pocket with support customized to your courses, including expert-made practice tests.
Why is it that the average person seeks out the advice of what feels like a million people, consulting himself? Knocking, looking, hoping. Is he looking for answers? Or looking for permission to be who he already knows he is? Is he looking for insight or just validation that his reflection is in fact okay? See, I think we all deep down know who we are, know what drives us. And even if we don't know exactly what the destination looks like, our hearts know the direction best suited to begin to pursue. So how is it so easy to forget? Why do we get our antennas crossed? See, when life becomes about meeting requirements and fulfilling obligations, checking off boxes and checking in on time, we forget the basics. We forget to live for ourselves. As if our job is to play a part, not direct. Playing a part is living up to expectations. Directing the movie, well, that's creating your own expectation. This world, your world, it belongs to you. It's a world with both unimaginable happiness, bliss, moments of ecstasy, and the occasional suffering, and chaos that we have to navigate through. But I think all of it comes down to whether you trust yourself to live it for yourself. To remove the shackles, take the training wheels off, stop asking permission, and do what you've always known was the right thing. That part never changed. You just had to wait amidst all your looking for external direction, for you to pause and find the internal courage. Freedom is not a life without chaos. It's trusting yourself to determine which dragons you will slay. It's not a life without battle. but fighting those battles that result in your liberation, dismissing the oppressors that build fences in your mind and chains around your soul. I've thought a lot about the idea of a life well lived, what it means, how it feels, and it seems to me it's about intentionality. Where are you going? It's not that you can escape suffering or eliminate fear. It's not that you'll avoid getting lost along the way, but it's the why. Why we endure these things makes all the difference. Is it for a better tomorrow or simply to get through today? And it's amazing. Accidentally stumbling upon that which scares you and intentionally facing that which scares you are so different that their occurrences trigger completely different neural networks in the brain. See, overcoming fear is ingrained in us. We want to grow. We want to evolve. We need more. The question is whether you will step out of the line that someone else made for you and live a life that is your own. And if it's crazy, great. Let it be crazy. If it's unique, perfect. Stand out. And if it scares you, my God, if it scares you, don't turn back. Don't you dare turn back. Give yourself the most important permission one can give, the permission to follow your intuition and your curiosity into tomorrow. Let the stakes be higher, let the rewards be meaningful. Let the chaos be your own to tame and to master. Every twist, every turn becomes not only a part of you, but a chapter in the story of your becoming. And as a seed you've held in your hand for so long finally meets the earth and grows so high that it connects you to the heavens. Remember that this is your life. It's your obligation to live it fully. Why is it that when we look back on our lives, it's never the easy days or the simplicity? It's not the calm that changes our reality or makes us who we are. Could be wrong, calm and simplicity, they're wonderful, but they're not transformative. And why would they be? Why would we change or seek to obtain more without a reason or incentive? It's times of struggle, of turbulence. It's when life was hard that we had to rethink who we are, reshape the way we look at the world. And because without chaos, you don't get calm. Without the storm, you don't get those crazy neon colors and golden rays and leaves as it passes by. In order to triumph in any capacity or any area of life, there is always a sacrifice that must be made. The adversity is the fire that forges the iron. There's a saying, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. It's a cycle. It's generally used in a socio-political sense, and I think in a lot of ways it applies today, but where I've really found it useful, where I found value in it, is at the personal level. Because what I've noticed is that have a cyclical nature. And when we're in a rough situation or overcoming an obstacle, we have to push, we fight, we grow. Sometimes without even realizing it, we achieve a result, and by default, this transformation that, in one way or another, makes us something new. But then it becomes easy to level out, right? And that's the challenge. It creates this period of stagnation. It's like we made the jump. It becomes real easy to stay there, and that's why I have found value in when life is not providing resistance to manufacture something. Because that's the only way to grow. Progress is happiness. Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning, his purpose is to find from struggle. things are too calm or simple or quiet, life begins to lack meaning, and that's never a spot we want to be. Life is about the pursuit of something. You just have to figure out what that blank will be. You get to decide which mountain to climb. There's a story about a butterfly making its way out of a cocoon. And it makes a little hole and starts attempting to push its way out. Someone walks by, see it struggling, and open the cocoon up to help the butterfly out, right? Thinking that they did this great deed, but in doing so, that butterfly has now lost its ability to use its wings to fly. Why? Because the strength that was necessary to fly would have been forged when he fought his way out. The butterfly was deprived of the very thing it needed to become something more, and that's the point. It's easy to get lost in the now and seek to eliminate everything that doesn't make the moment more comfortable, to remove that which doesn't make things easier. But whether we're talking about collectively or the complacency in our individual lives, we have to remember that avoiding discomfort isn't the answer. When your biggest problem is Amazon taking 5 days to deliver, or that your feelings are hurt by someone's comments or opinions on social media, you've lost track of yourself. You may be living in a world lacking the resistance necessary for growth. Maybe it's time to ask what matters. And I remember when I lived in Boston, I'd walk around listening to podcasts downtown, and I'll never forget Ryan Holiday differentiating between passion and purpose. He called passion temporary, a dopamine hit. It's the excitement before the project begins, the beginning of a journey, the honeymoon phase. But passion alone falls short. And it falls short because anything worthwhile is hard. It tests us. It repeatedly presents us with those metaphorical cocoons we have to fight. We have to earn our stripes, grow our wings, and if we stop at passion, there's no reason to battle on. To take the punches, knowing that they will create for us a tomorrow full of infinite possibility, and that's where we need purpose. That's why it matters. We need something bigger to march towards, a destination that's meaningful, to remind us that those challenging times, they're not a burden. There is no poor me here. They're the fire that sharpens us, that whispers to us not only the importance of carrying on, but the power contained within ourselves to do so. This world, it is not stacked against you. It's never the problem or the obstacle. It's laid out at your feet. And it's in those very times when we're uncomfortable, when we're unsure, when we don't know where to draw our strength, that we need to remember it comes with it. It's an idea that is brought to life, courage through understanding, through the trials and tribulations of life that didn't intimidate or hold you back. Knowing that life has given you everything you need to blaze your trail. So don't be afraid to let it take you somewhere new. I've come to accept the fact that I'm a loser. The more people say otherwise, the more I prove over and over again that it's just who I am. Stuck in my ways, an outsider, outcast, out of my mind, losing. See, it started with my old identity, who I used to be. Yeah, I lost that. Then I lost those people that made me feel small, the ones holding me back. Would the streak continue? You bet. Lost that need to please others. Hey, turns out I know what's best for me better than they do. Lost the things being done out of obligation and not purpose. Lost the wrong metrics I was using to measure success. Gone. Lost my way so that I might find something better. That was hard. Thought I might lose my mind, but I found it. Just lost my old way of thinking, and hey, that's a win. Lost yesterday, found tomorrow. Lost scarcity, but found abundance. I lost too the people who were more talented, better skilled, the ones who outclassed me fine. Showed me what it took to win. Lost my heart a few times. That sucked, but looks like it still works, so we're good. I lost my purpose, followed the shiny objects instead of the things that matter, but sometimes seeing what doesn't shine puts a spotlight on what does. Keeps me swinging from star to star, and yeah, I like it. I lose my discipline from time to time, but hey, regret hurts more, so I force myself to find it. As I write this out, speak it into existence, I'm losing track of time. All is forgotten. But I think that's how it should be. I hope I lose more tomorrow. Yeah, I lose a lot. Thank God. Hope. That bridge that connects the present to a more ideal world. The idea that no obstacle is too big to overcome. No situation too dire to emerge victorious, and that you are never confined to how things work. That we have always held to hope. The belief, the conviction that there is a better life, a better world beyond the horizon. Why does this matter? Well, to put it simply, before one can leave the situation they are in, they have to believe there is another path worth taking. It's not always seeing, but trusting. It's a tale of two components. One, the belief that something better is out there. And two, the belief that you are strong enough to bridge that gap to create that world. So let's start with number one. There was a study done by Kurt Richter in the 1950s, and he used rats. It was kind of a gruesome experiment, but definitely worth talking about because the takeaway is incredible, right? And I kind of cherry-picked the relevant parts of the experiment. Basically, he wanted to delve into the role that hope plays in our lives. And what he would do is he would drop rats into a jar of water and observe. See how long they'd swim before they drown. And for the most part, these rats would swim for a minute or two. Feeling of hopelessness. But then he made a change, and when they were close to drowning, he'd reach in, he'd pick them up, he'd hold them for a little while. And then he'd place them back in the water, and the results between the two groups for night and day, the rats saw in the second group that it wasn't over. And when they were placed back in the water, they had a reason to continue swimming, and they did. Some of them did for hours. The only difference being that they had hope. They saw there was more. And I don't think that's too different from us. The situation may be different, but the rules generally apply, right? So much of conceding or giving up in life, accepting an existence that falls short of our ideals, is when we don't believe in something more. We stop swimming. We don't give ourselves a chance. Right? So instead of creating bridges to walk on, we make walls that lock us in. Hope is knowing all pain, all discomfort is temporary. And the second component is belief in yourself. Belief in yourself to traverse that space between current and the ideal. It's self-empowerment. You can be the difference maker in your life and others. And it's funny, the other day after reading about the Richter experiment, I was sitting in a friend's house with my laptop, kind of trying to figure out what to make of it, right? Because the idea of hope I knew was powerful, and then I wanted to share that story. I wanted to write something that would highlight its value, but it seemed kind of unfinished, or simply part of an explanation. I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I hear this loud bang over and over again, and I get up and I run to the back of the house, right, to make sure everything's fine, see what's going on. And my friend's standing there with goggles on, this grin on his face, and a sledgehammer, and a huge hole in the wall in front of him. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And you just knocked your wall down. He goes, yeah, I wanted to make another closet. His family's growing. He needs more space. And he just took it upon himself to make that happen. And I just looked at him and walked back out, started walking to the living room, and it hit me. This is a component of hope. Seeing what's not there and doing something about it. And if this swimming experiment is step one, this has to be step two. In real time. Step one, believing, seeing something more. Step two, taking action to change it now. Buying into the fact that you have the power to change your own world. It's funny because any house or room I've ever lived in, my thoughts always, you look around and this is it, right? This is the situation. This is what's being given to me. How do I make the most of it? How do I play within these parameters? Not, okay, this is fine, but it could be better, by smashing down the wall in the back over there, creating something new. And, obviously the message here isn't about home maintenance. Right? This is about taking a sledgehammer to the places in your life in which you are not content, so that you can build in its place something that matters. You look around to your left, to your right, and you're unhappy. That's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of the story. That's where the wheels hit the road. In other words, it's looking at life with a lens, with the freedom of knowing things don't have to be what they are. They don't have to stay the same until the universe changes them. No, they can be what you make them. What life teaches us again and again is that walls can be stepped over. No's can become yeses. Impossibles can become commonplace. But first, there must be hope. There must be an understanding that your world is a 10,000-foot view of all the little stories you tell yourself and the narratives you believe. See, every day when you wake up and take your first steps, breathe your first breaths, know that nothing simply is. No, it is simply chosen and can be remade. That's what makes life such a beautiful thing. It's flexibility. It's promise to provide what has been relentlessly sought out. So remember, it's when you can't find your answer, when the odds look grim, when the rest of the world tells you no, that you most need hope. Hope, the power, the strength to look within yourself and remember that one, life can change, and two, you can change it. Armed with this understanding, nothing is impossible. When others fail to see the answer, the light in themselves and the situation, you become the reminder that light is internally manufactured. We aren't given answers so that we may believe them. We are given the opportunity to believe, and thus we create that ending we hope to pursue. And without this, life is nothing more than a permanent status quo. It's holding our hands to the sky and receiving what life chooses to provide. But that's not why you're here. It's not why you woke up today. Not to accept, but to create. To find hope in the tragedy and the hardship, and to find within yourself the strength to move forward with whatever you decide comes next. There's a saying that some people feel the rain. Others just do what. I've always found this interesting, this idea, how the same subject, same situation, or occurrence can be interpreted so differently, right? It can plant the seeds for such different outcomes. Like Yoshimi and Koga mentioned in their book, The Courage to be Disliked. Well water is 60 degrees, and it's always 60 degrees in the summer and the winter, but depending on what time of year, right, the makeup of the outside world, that 60 degrees feels different. The water didn't change, its circumstances did, and our thoughts are no different. It's not the world that writes the story, we do. And every second, moment, day is merely an interpretation. Does time tick by? Or is it driven into a state of flow? Is it transformed into something more? Was losing an indicator that, hey, maybe you're not good enough? Or is it your motivation to be better than you've ever been? Is your day an allegiance to the present or an invitation to chase down tomorrow? See, the world doesn't get to tell the tale. The world is paper, it's ink, it's ideas. The world is everything you need to decide how your story's going to go. How does he see the world? How does she define reality? That's the question. Because you don't need to change the world, you need to change the way you see it. And you don't need to change who you are. You need to change the imaginary shackles you placed around your ankles that are limiting the heights you could reach. In fact, the world, as far as I'm concerned, is an accumulation of thoughts, ideas. It's 8 billion individualized movie screens attempting to interact, to coexist together. And when you look at it like that, it's not that your mindset plays a role or it's kind of important. No, it's that it narrates the play. It's the glue that ties everything together. What you see is what you get. And this isn't a one and done thing, it's an everyday thing. Because there's always going to be occurrences in our lives, the challenges that threaten our understanding of who we are and what we're capable of. There will always be the temptation to make the opportunity into the problem and the hero into the villain. But why forfeit that control? I remember hearing that if you find time to be grateful, both in the morning and at night, it changes your life. Not because the world transforms, but because it reinforces the perspective you gain. We are lucky to be here. We're lucky to have challenges to push us forward. Lucky to have ups and downs that bring us closer to the people in our lives. We're lucky that chaos and discomfort open a door for transformation on the other side. And look, I get life isn't perfect. And not everything can be great all the time. But I do believe that if we can bring ourselves to stop, to breathe, to even focus briefly, we can find value in any situation. What's in front of us? Go back in time or remake the obstacle at your feet, but you can always decide how to make that work for you. And that's a superpower. And I use that. I use it when my short-term ideas or videos or projects underperform. I use it when people let me down. I use it when in the moment I'm either under or overwhelmed. The question, where is the win? In this spot, this situation, where most would hang their heads and let the outside world rewrite the story, how can I find a way to hold mine high and maintain my own accountability? Extreme differences in life outcomes are so often prompted by such subtle realizations, subtle decisions. Their reason to stop could be your reason to not only carry on, but thrive. And the best news is you don't need approval or authorization. You don't need the stars to align or doors to open up. You just need to give yourself permission to see the sun amidst the clouds, the hope amidst the doubt. You have to remind yourself that there is always something to cling to, always a second chance. There is always a win. All you have to do is wonder how much of it has materialized. Like if what F. Scott Fitzgerald says is true and our lives are defined by opportunity, even the ones we miss, then how much remains in it? And I don't think it's about playing a game of what if. That would be endless. It would be self-defeating. No one's perfect. I don't even really think it's about making a right turn instead of a left. Because as long as you're moving, and moving with conviction, life ultimately brings you where you have to be. But more, my concern is the steps never brought. My ideas unhatched. My opportunities I either knowingly or unknowingly left on the shelf. Because it didn't seem real. Like a Broadway play between my ears that as a spectator I knew would end. After all, that's what stories do. How much of ourselves have we cast aside as simply the things we don't say out loud? But first, it's in. We've yet to be taught to limit because limits aren't things, they're ideas, and ideas must be adopted. That's why they say some of life's best things were done by people too ignorant to know they were impossible, too naive with the notion that they couldn't say them out loud. Then it's comparison. They have what I want, but it was meant for them and not me. How delusional to think I could have it. How crazy to think that life has yet to be written, and I am an author. Those things we don't say out loud, and then we look around and we see highlight reels, we see awards and vacations and smiles, but we don't stop to think maybe they're just like me. Maybe they're people who struggle and question themselves and doubt the road ahead. No, it must be the path diverged. They took happiness and I took those things we don't say out loud, and then there's everyday life when things don't go as planned. When the world presents curveballs and you haven't learned to hit off speed, so you feel small and you feel inadequate and ill-equipped, and you could reach out, but that's not cool, that's not right, that's something that you don't say out loud, but we keep it in, like all in, and eventually it becomes the hate-onlys, and I wish I had. It's the quiet envy gazing longingly towards those who just cared less, who realize maybe life's not as serious as we make it out to be, who turn thoughts to things, not by burying, but by embodying them, and maybe that's the trick. To unlock the gate, keeping your perceived reality from the possibility of a new one, the one you could create, if only you promoted your fleeting thoughts to forward progress. See, dreams can fail to come to fruition in two places, in your head and outside of it. But at least outside it has a chance. At least outside, you can take the common, normal, everyday background and make it the backdrop to your movie, where you play a lead role. But it must be accepted and acknowledged, not thought of or even whispered, but screamed, so that the details and the trivialities that exist now work for you. That's right, they are now yours. Not because you thought about it, but because you reached out a hand and you took. You asked the world for something. And in life, it will always be true that you don't get what you do not ask for. So when you find yourself staring up a wall comprised of self-defeating narratives and manufactured limits, be ignorant, be irrational, be the reason your dreams have a chance. And when you look around and you see more and wonder why you don't have it, know that you can. You're allowed to. If you sacrifice, you will. But you must believe that you are worthy of it. Not in the back of your head where you keep your locker combo with movie quotes, but in reality, where words bounce off your lips. And when you feel like life is treating you unfairly, like they're happier or having better, know that life is peaks and valleys, not just for you, but for everyone. And how you internalize that and carry on makes the difference. And when you feel lost or stuck, you are not hopeless, but in progress, being broken down so that you can be reconstructed, stronger, better. Victory is not in hiding those struggles, but accepting them as the difference, as the reason you created the miraculous. Not because you had dreams, because you said them out loud. Life's best kept secret? Simple. Show up. Show up when you're tired. You're down. Show up after defeat. Show up when you're stressed, when you're worried. Show up when you don't feel like it. In fact, that's when it's most important to show up. That becomes the great differentiator. See, a lot of us, somewhere along the way, we adopt this idea that winning is about the home run. It's stepping up to the plate, swinging so hard that the ball leaves the park and it never comes back to earth. And while, yeah, that's a fantastic sentiment. And if or when that happens, that's great. But sustained success isn't one monumental occurrence. It's little victories, consistently occurring over and over and over. Very small. In fact, to those walking by, they're probably too ordinary to be considered successful or acknowledged. They're too mundane. They're only victories because you decided they are. And when you think about it, the evidence is out there. Right? Successful teams don't build game plans around the Hail Mary with no time left on the clock. No, they show up every day and master the task in front of them. They compound the opportunity available on a daily basis because it's there. And that puts them in a position to execute. However the situation unfolds, they showed up when it quote-unquote didn't matter. And that, of course, means everything when it does matter. One should hear those waiting for life to hand out miracles will always be left behind by those willing to, well, show up. When it's not fun, not sexy or exciting, days when you're tired, when you're weak, when you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders because, well, we all know that happens. We all know how easy it is for that to be the excuse or become the free pass, especially when you know in the back of your head this is practice, right? This is a rep. The world won't end if you sit this one out. You wouldn't sit out the real thing, the Super Bowl of your pursuit. Then we have to understand the value of the mundane staircase leading to that event. Each seemingly insignificant step is your Super Bowl. It's not that it's close to the same, it has to be the same. Play the way you practice, but turned way up. Now we're saying there is no difference. And when the lights are turned on and you're standing on that stage, it's not some new experience you have to figure out and navigate. It's the continuation of that staircase, of the old, of the familiar. You showed up then, and you'll show up now. When you were unsure of yourself then, you didn't hide. You trusted yourself, and now that same trust stands by your side. When you were tired, weak, when you had 9 million things on your mind, you didn't fail. You blocked out the world and you found clarity, and now that same clarity simplifies lays before you. When you felt discouraged, or the finish line felt too far away, you reacquired your meaning by simply executing, by being there. The same. So while it's their Super Bowl, their championship, their one shot, this is your everyday. It's your DNA. It's watching that ball roll down the hill that you created, pushed by momentum you brought to life. You'll do what you came here to do because you made that decision. Every step along the way, every single day leading up to now. My inability to die that kills me. My hesitant within the ship's cargo hold, watch it sail away to some far-off place. Maybe for a minute, maybe forever. But the bird has to be uncaged. It must unlearn its constraints. It must metaphorically die to transcend that which it knew itself to be. I think we all have wings. I think very few of us put them to use. And isn't that the challenge? Perhaps we're too busy living. I've always had the ability. Now I've captured the fleeting awareness. Next, I must obtain the courage. Because the rule, the truth, the beacon of light to be followed is we're always one decision away from a totally different life. He's so effectively fooling others, I've begun to fool myself. Dare I decide to play new games with new rules, to see life with new eyes, perhaps upside down. But when your sight is finally set on infinity, when you're looking at the clouds while lying on your back, striking them, who gets the honor of deciding? Sometimes I wonder how far we need to walk to understand that the danger isn't stepping into a new pair of shoes. It's thinking you need to walk the same path down the same street in the same pair of shoes you've had on your entire life. Strange. Right? Peculiar, according to previous cognitive mappings, but maybe they're crazy. Is your oxygen. Crazy is pure. It's desirable. It's been the goal all along. And, well, where I thought I dedicated my life to its pursuit, I see how wrong I was. To think something new could emerge. No, not without the death of the old. Not without that caricature of myself slipping away. Not without that ship taking free. Last thing, I want roots ripped from the ground. I want new heroes and new villains, new street signs telling of new roads. New tears from eyes stimulated by that which I've never seen. The increased rhythm of a new heartbeat in anticipation of all that lies ahead. New beginnings, maybe for a minute, or maybe forever. I'll let you know once I learn to die. There's a quote that states, life is 10% what happens to you. Which means that your reaction is drastically more important than the circumstance. That's critical to know. It's critical to understand that nothing, no one in life has more power over your own situation And there's an old story that hits on this point exactly. There's a father and a daughter. And basically the daughter's complaining. She's complaining about life, how difficult things are. She doesn't know how she's going to make it in whatever it is she's doing. I mean, the bottom line is she's tired of the day-to-day, right? And her father gets this idea. He says, come with me into the kitchen. And he gets 3 pots of water, puts them on the stove, and turns the burners on. As soon as they start boiling, he drops a potato in the first one, an egg in the second one, and some coffee beans in the third one. And after some time goes by and they boil a little bit, he pulls them out and he puts the potato in a bowl, he puts the egg in a bowl, and he takes a ladle and he puts some of the coffee in a cup. He says, what do you see? She says, well, I see a potato, I see eggs, and I see coffee. He says, yeah, but look closer, there's more there. And she goes and she touches the potato and it's now soft. The bowl with the boiled egg. And she takes the shell off and then breaks it open. She sees that it's hard inside. Then finally he asks her to take a sip of coffee. And she smells it, she takes a sip, a smile comes to her face. She says, so what does all this mean? What are you trying to say? He says, well, the potato, when I dropped it in the water, it was rigid, it was tough, it was uncompromising. But in the boiling, you have the egg that was basically the opposite. And then there was the coffee. That wasn't changed by the situation. It created something new. It took the same adversity and used it as a lever to bring something beautiful into existence. He then looks at his daughter and says, look, when things become challenging, when things become difficult, which one are you? What's your approach? See, maybe the question is not about how challenging the situation is, right? Maybe we've been asking the wrong question. Maybe it's, how do you transform yourself? And by default, the world around you. How do you take your strengths, your values, your loves, your joys, your happiness, and let that lead you into something bigger? When life gets hard, and it does, what do you become? Myself, we are not defined by life at peak state. As much as I wish that were the case, right? We're not shaped by the easy days. By. Because those times are great, they're enjoyable, but they're not what make or break us. It's the times that challenge us and ask us to be what we have not yet become. That's the good stuff. And this is another one of those, simple but not easy type things, because on paper it makes sense, it's understood. But it's an outlook that manifests over time. It's slowly stacked piece by piece and brick by brick, realizing that every situation provides you with tools to make something out of an apparent nothing. And then it waits, right? Because fate is in your hands. And I can certainly think of, times in my life. That's one of the reasons I love these stories. I can reflect where each one of those pots of boiling water was relevant. I can think of times I was too headstrong, like the metaphorical potato. I thought success would be easy. Things that just weren't good because I didn't ask, what does the world need? I asked myself, what do I want to give the world? And there has to be a marriage there, right? And it was a quick reminder that the world owes me nothing. I was humbled or softened, as the story goes. I've been the egg, I've been timid, I've been uncertain, thin-skinned. worrying about what people would say or the content I was creating, worried about perception. How would things look if I failed? And very quickly, I learned that when life is a game of comparison or one-upmanship, when you do things for reasons and people other than yourself, you can't win. You overcompensate. You do things for the wrong reasons and you lose yourself. You become hardened. And then there's the good stuff, right? Getting to the coffee, not bowing down to the circumstances, but shaping it. Not letting life dictate how the story goes or the fate of your character. And what's interesting is I'm pretty sure that being that metaphorical egg in the potato, they lay the foundation to become the coffee, the life lessons, the falling down, the picking my ego up off the floor, learning to trust myself, not be led by the opinions and expectations of others. You essentially learn that you can take the world around you and change it, that it is malleable, it is flexible. It's up to you to believe it. And that's critical because no one comes along and co-signs that understanding for you. It's an internal process. You start to learn that things aren't there to provide instruction. They're there to propel you. But can you see the unknown as the opportunity, the obstacle as the way, and the loss as the armor that you pick up during the journey? And so, all of these words essentially come to one point. And that point is you have so much more control over your life than you think you do. As I've said before, you are stronger than you think you are. You are more resilient than you can even imagine. And when life tests you, and again, it will, remember that the challenges are not happening to you, but for you. The world isn't taking away what you have, it's giving you what you need. So long as you're willing to adapt with it, to grow, expand out. Because you not only have the ability to change yourself, but the world as well. Could it be that the answers to our most challenging all that they're brushed off? That in pursuing that bulldozer we think is necessary to knock the door down, we refuse again and again the key that we simply open. Why is our first instinct to think the next action is big or is glamorous? Is that again and again we need to look for some brilliant, monumental that would unroll like a scroll containing a treasure map. But again and again I learn and I relearn that what I need, what is required, is so reasonable. It's so accessible that it almost feels like the universe has a sense of humor, right? It's sitting back and chuckling while we run around with keys in our pockets looking for a sledgehammer to break the door down. This is kind of a funny story. So last year, I had my first year World Within live event, and Evan Carmichael was one of the speakers, and after the event, we were talking about YouTube. He says, why don't you swing by, we'll look at your channel, see if I can offer any suggestions or pointers. And, I gladly accepted the offer. So I showed up later in the evening. He's got his laptop open. He's running all these tests, right? There's graphs, there's charts, there's tables. My first question is obviously, what are you doing? And he says, I'm testing my YouTube titles and thumbnails. I'm thinking, interesting. Right, here's a guy who makes so much content. He's got 370 million views. Right? So some time and energy on this. So I asked him, Evan, does it really matter? I mean, if your thumbnail picture is orange or yellow, or if there's a face on the left or right side, or if it's capitalized or not, right? If it's good, people will show up and they'll watch it. Isn't that what matters? Well, it turns out I was wrong. In fact, I couldn't be more wrong. And when you're talking about a channel with millions of impressions, making a small change in color could mean your videos are clicked 1% more, which means thousands, if not millions, more views, which means it's shared more, seen more, which means the channel grows. And that's not from him going back and recreating and reinventing the wheel. No, it's using the key he has in his pocket right now. And that's the reason I found this so incredible. Because until that moment, I'd always approached the platform with a sledgehammer, right? Using our metaphor. I had this idea that, I truly found to be an epiphany, changed the way I think about things, so I get really excited. I'd make a video about it, I'd release it out to the world, and it wouldn't do so well. People wouldn't watch that particular video, it would just kind of sit there, and my thought was always, all right, it worked for me, must not have hit for everyone else. That's life. On to the next one. Never did I think for a second that, hey, you don't need to recreate the wheel. You're looking for a bulldozer when you need a key. Right? You need to slightly adjust the titling or make the thumbnail more appealing, right? And the idea is these little tweaks are sometimes all that's required. We think we gotta reach out and find some answer or readjust every aspect of what we're doing. It's like, no, it's a little thing and it's right in front of you and it's very manageable and it's very realistic. And believe me, especially for people that aren't content creators, and there's a lot of you listening to this right now, I get how trivial it seems. But isn't that the point? And sure enough, within the next few months, I changed some thumbnail pictures around and 2 videos that were just sitting there got hundreds of thousands of more views. And I, as I tend to do, look at the bigger picture. Well, how many times in life are you trying to find this monumental answer? And it's like, no, tweak here, adjustment here, change the way you are measuring success. And it changes your tactics. Think about productivity, right? I've been in the same boat. I want to be more productive. So how? Well, maybe if I get better at scheduling, I'll get scheduling tools, maybe some time management apps. I know I'll do a daily checklist. That'll do it. That's what I need. But in reality, the commonality when I have productive days is they all consist of me waking up, not stressed, having time to think, reflect, plan, and moving on. And it flows into every other aspect of my day. Right? It doesn't require me to buy some $1,000 productivity course. Big result often requires small, manageable action. And again, the point here is that change can feel overwhelming because I think the default mechanism is desired result. It's like, oh, I want to climb that mountain, so I have to figure out a way to jump that high. No, that's not true. You have to take small steps many times. And what we should be looking for consistency or something within our grasp, or looking for some small self-contained miracle. Everything feels bigger than it is. It's an interesting part about growing up. You realize everything's not as big and intimidating and shiny and sparkly as it appears to be. We have the tools right now in real time. In fact, they're very ordinary, very unimpressive, and that's what tools, just like people. I grew up seeing pictures of my grandfather, who was an admiral in the Navy, talking to American presidents and heads of state. And I'd ask him, how was that? What was that like? And he'd always say, look, they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like I do, just like you do. Right? I think in a lot of ways, we need to take the glamour and the mystique away from the things we want and the people we aspire to be like, right? Big goals are an accumulation of little steps. And quote-unquote successful people are ordinary human beings who have the courage to take those steps. Not for attention or likes or follows, but because they cared and they respected the process enough to stick it out. so can I, and so can you, right? You have everything you need. Whether you're talking about creating on YouTube or putting yourself in position to conquer the day, lurking or emulating those you admire, nothing is otherworldly for you. Sure, you'll have your strengths and your weaknesses because we all do, but there's no magic you need to find or acquire, no bulldozer or sledgehammer needed to lessen the gap between real and ideal. It's the understanding that the key in your pocket, the one you already have, will get you through the door. It's not a commitment to perfection, it's a commitment to remind yourself that every time you're stuck or overwhelmed or lost, that perhaps you're looking for miracles in the clouds when the solution is simple at your feet. It's not the mountain, it's one rock. It's not the forest, it's one tree. It's not the journey, it's one step. And as time goes by, you'll find yourself moving beyond that previous reality, beyond those looking for the home run or the narrative that you don't have what it takes because you do and you always did. You simply had to commit walking that path.
Make every exam your moment with Chegg. Keep a steady partner.
I've studied successful people for 40 years, and though the diversity you find among them is astounding, I've found that they are all alike in one way. How they think. That is the one thing that separates successful people from unsuccessful ones. And here's the good news. How successful people think can be learned. If you change your thinking, change your life. Why? Change your thinking. It's hard to overstate the value of changing your thinking. Good thinking can do many things for you. Generate revenue, solve problems, and create opportunities. It can take you to a whole new level, personally and professionally. It really can change your life. Consider some things you need to know about changing your thinking. 1. Changed thinking is not automatic. Sadly, a change in thinking doesn't happen on its own. Good ideas rarely go out and find someone. If you want to find a good idea, search for it. If you want to become a better thinker, work at it. And once you begin to become a better thinker, the good ideas keep coming. In fact, the amount of good thinking you can do at any time depends primarily on the amount of good thinking you are already doing. 2. Changed thinking is difficult. When you hear someone say, "Now this is just off the top of my head," expect dandruff. The only people who believe thinking is easy are those who don't habitually engage in it. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Albert Einstein, one of the best thinkers who ever lived, asserted, "Thinking is hard work. That's why so few do it. Because thinking is so difficult, Use anything you can to help you improve the process. Changed thinking is worth the investment.
What exactly are you afraid of? What's holding you back? Is the giant rock you inhabit spins through the universe, a speck in a galaxy of stars? It's easy to look out and see the vastness of the world around you. Forget entirely about the strength that you possess. Forget entirely that the mind's capacity is as infinite as those same stars that surround you. I don't think it's that we definitively choose to sell ourselves short. I think we simply lose sight of the fact that we have a say in the matter to begin with. Our fears keep us wishing, our insecurities keep us hoping, we stay standing still when we should be moving forward. Behold, our pain comes from not doing, but wishing that we did. It's no coincidence. The more we fail, the more we realize life is a game that expands as we push. The power of making mistakes isn't the mistake itself, it's that when we get back up and brush ourselves off, our cognitive mapping of the world changes. We see that we can step out a little further. Our very definition of what's possible expands, and I believe that's what courage is. The willingness to step into that chaos of life. Knowing that each time you find the strength to push forward, you are restructuring your reality. Resources are there, the tools are there, the opportunity is there. How crazy is the fact that we just need to convince ourselves that more is worth it? The difficulty of short-term vulnerability isn't an enemy. It's the very ticket required for admission. And so I ask again, what are you afraid of? Falling? Because you will rise, and you will rise stronger than you ever were. Is it criticism? Because one, people are so focused on their own endeavors that they look up way less than we think they do. And two, a small group you surround yourself with. Why? Because building things of significance requires starting on the ground floor, and there's no shame, but honor in breaking down to build up. When I look at my life in terms of chapters, right? Childhood, high school, college, 20s, 30s, the things that were my biggest concerns during each chapter are now laughable. Maybe if I saw that, I could have lived a little freer, been a little bolder. What if we were to get ahead of that learning curve? What if we understood that life is beautiful and flexible and exciting? And what if we understood that now? Instead of looking at this chapter 15 years down the road and chuckling to ourselves for not having the courage to have made the leap, taken the chance, but moved out into an unknown. We cannot physically see that which doesn't exist, which is why it's so important that we know we are the architects. That the fear pulsing through our veins is indicating that we are building. We are choosing to step into a world that will give more if we find the courage to ask. So as this giant rock you inhabit spins through the universe, a speck in a galaxy of stars, perhaps each little light up there exists not to remind you how small you are, to remind you that those same elements exist within you, to show you that the fire of a million suns sits in your soul, beats in your chest, waits for your signal now. So what